What's up YouTube, and welcome to my pickups video for the month of January 2026. Got the year off to a bang with some super cold weather, snow, all that fun stuff that we're having here in the Midwest, as well as most of the country it feels like right now. But did a little bit of travel earlier in the month. I did have a trip to Colorado and Wyoming for a work trip, and got to do a little bit of game hunting while I was out there. The highlight of the trip for sure was that the Game Force location in Boulder, Colorado is sadly closing next month after like 30 plus years in business. Really sad. We used to have that chain in St. Louis back in the 90s and early 2000s. It turned out I think they were all franchise locations. This one is franchised as well, and it might be one of the last ones left in the country. There is also one in Aurora, Colorado that is not affiliated with this one, but it's also a really cool store as well. But I will tell you that Boulder store is one of my favorite game stores in the whole United States. It's crazy to say that with all the travel that I do, but it is a really, really rich store full of good stuff. A lot of import games, a lot of just rare, weird stuff. They sell loose manuals, which I always like, and they also keep a lot of new releases in that are more niche, and just some of the shooters and weird stuff that I like as well. Really sad to see that store go, but I had to visit at least one more time before it shuts down. I don't think I'll get back out there in February, but if I did, I would love to pick it over one more time. And got some really cool stuff. They fortunately were also selling some of the fixtures in the store, and I'm sure that will probably ramp up as they get closer to closing. But I did get one really cool thing that's probably the highlight of the month, and I'll save that for last. So let's talk about some of the stuff I found over the month. Some of the stuff is from that Game Force visit. First one of these was one that was a big surprise to find, and that is P-Radicus Conflict for the NES. This is one of the unlicensed Color Dreams games, and this was like super nice, complete in the box, like the nicest Color Dreams game I've ever probably seen, unless you were to find one sealed, of course. And I thought that this was worth getting because I didn't have the manual for it, and I'm obviously chasing all the manuals for the NES, and so why not just go ahead and get it complete, especially because of how nice it was. This was one of the later Color Dreams games that came to the NES, and so not really a great game by any means. It's this weird like shooter slash space sim hybrid game, I guess would be the best way to put it. The artwork's a little bit generic, but it is just super, super nice shape. So that is the box for the game. I'll show you the cartridge. This one, like many of the Color Dreams games, came with a baby blue or a black cartridge variant. Doesn't really seem to be any rhyme or reason other than just they had some shells for one or the other, and then that's what they made them in. But the cartridge is in excellent shape as well. Just really nice upgrade. I had, obviously, the cartridge in my NES collection, and I sold off my copy, which actually was one of the nicer carts that I already had. A lot of the Color Dreams games you'll find were sold directly to video stores. Excuse me. And a lot of the video stores just stickered the hell out of these or put marker all over them, things like that. So it's just really cool to find these in good shape without all that stuff. It also had the official Color Dreams sleeve, which is a little bit interesting because they're so short compared to the NES factory sleeves and some of the other third-party ones. And it had this weird, just generic artwork on it that all of them had. It had nothing to do with this particular game. So interesting to see that. Of course, we have the manual, great shape as well. It has the warranty card in there. Can't imagine many people sent those off, giving Color Dreams some feedback on the games. And then this one also had the poster, which one of the reasons I know this is one of the later Color Dreams games is it has a lot of Sega Genesis games that they were planning to put out. And actually, none of these got released, for the Genesis at least. So I thought that was kind of interesting that it has a game even called Colorado here, which I don't know anything about. Never got released. A game called Targan, Escape from Atlantis, not to be confused with Mermaids of Atlantis. And then the infamous Hellraiser for NES, which did get a lot of hype and advertising, but ultimately never came out. Would have been kind of neat if we got that one. And then two more games that also were supposed to come to the Genesis, Starblade, not to be confused with the Namco Starblade, and then Andromeda Mission. So kind of neat that he had this poster of all these other things that they were planning on putting out and never actually showed up. So I have a theory on why this game is so nice. When I was looking on eBay at some of the other copies on there, I saw there actually were some other really nice copies out there, but the common thread is they all were in Europe, and I think that Color Dreams probably just dumped their unsold inventory of this game and sent it over to the European countries back in the early 90s, would be my guess. The reason I say that is because it actually had a bilingual French and German instruction manual as well included in the box, which I've never seen this before with any of the Color Dreams games. So either they had aspirations of entering the European market intentionally, or again, just kind of became a dumping ground for some of the games. But it seems like if you want this particular title in nice shape, you're going to be buying a copy from Europe. So I'm guessing somebody maybe re-imported it back over a few years ago and then sold it to Game Force. I don't know, just my theory. But wanted to show that one in particular because it's so nice. And again, like most Color Dream stuff is just trashed when you find it. So really neat to see one of those in original shape. We'll talk about a game I got on eBay. I've been wanting this one for a really long time since I started going after Neo Geo CD games, and I would say this is probably the pinnacle of the library as far as most expensive game. Kind of wavers between a couple different titles, but this is one that I was very happy to get a good price on eBay. Sent the seller a offer and ended up having a back and forth conversation with them because it turned out it was a game store. Sounded like it had been sitting in their store inventory for a while and they just kind of wanted to move it. I'm not too surprised. It's a pretty niche title. But that is the game that has several different names, and probably the best English translation of this one is Ironclad. But it also has this really long Japanese title called Brickinger, which you see on the title as well. Gameplay is in full English with Japanese also on the screen characters, but it is one of the games that if you put it into a Neo Geo CD from the American market or one that's been modded to be, it will play in full English. That's really nice. This is a fantastic shooter. This is one of the games that, although it is very expensive, I can see why. It has a neat history behind it. This actually was released directly to Neo Geo CD as an exclusive, which you can't say that about too many of the titles on the system. And it never got a proper AES version back in the day. And so now there's been some people that have done conversions to like MBS, I believe, and maybe there's even an AES hacked cart, I don't know. But this one originally was intended to be just a CD title, which I think is pretty cool. I do think they probably intended it to release arcade in some way, shape, or form, because it does have all like the MVS mode and stuff like that that you see in the menu screen of a lot of the Neo Geo CD games. Fantastic shooter. It is a horizontal shooter, which is not my favorite style, but I really liked this one. And it has a lot of influence from R-Type, because you have a thing hanging off the front of your ship that you can throw at enemies or use special attacks. But it also has some other cool things like a charge shot. It has a bomb attack. Just a lot of variety in how the weaponry is set up in this game. It has 3 different ships you can choose from, so you can master which speed and power and things like that. So a lot of replayability not only from that, but then the other thing that makes this one really cool is it has a Darius-style branching system. And so you can go through the levels, and then ultimately there's a whole lot more to check out if you go down different paths. And it's going to be really fun to work through some of those. So I made it through the game once on one pathway, but there's a lot more to see with some of that stuff that's included with that. And the other thing I will give a shout out to this game for is it has really cool boss battles. Like, they are very well done. The bosses are super imposing, and they definitely put a lot of work into that in particular. So very happy to get this one in my collection, and also just to actually play it and enjoy it to the level that I did. I would say this is definitely one of the best shooters on the Neo Geo CD, or Neo Geo in general, because we got most of them on the CD, but not all of them. So very happy to have this one, and check off a big one off my Neo Geo CD want list. Still kind of debating going for a full set of these. I'm maybe, I don't know, a third of the way there, but I do have most of the big titles for it. And still have a few more to chip away at, and so I'll kind of make a decision based on that. But it's not a huge library overall, and I think it would be kind of fun to have a full set of these, because I'm definitely not going after like an AES library or anything like that. So it's a nice way to do it on a budget and have the Neo Geo CD versions where they exist. Last thing I'll say about that game is it was developed by Saurus, which was one of the second parties, third parties, whatever you want to call it, for the system. And one of my favorite ones, they actually put out games like Shock Troopers 1 and 2, and I really like those games as well. So Saurus did a really nice job. They were using like some pre-rendered sprites and some of the things that were kind of hot for that era. And it is one of the later releases that came out for the system, which is probably why that one got such a low print run. But that's not all the SNK stuff I got this month. I got a couple other SNK things. So this was a game that I've been wanting for the Neo Geo Pocket. I completed my Neo Geo Pocket US set I guess a couple years ago at this point. But I'm going after some of the Japanese exclusives that I never chased down before. And this is one that had been on my list for quite a while. This is Cool Cool Jam. which is a Neo Geo Pocket Color exclusive, but it also relates to Cool Cool Tune on the Sega Dreamcast that only came out in Japan. And the neat reason I wanted this game in particular is because the Dreamcast game is a music action game. This one's like a music action RPG. Makes it a little bit text heavy and difficult to get through, but it does have some music action scenes built into it as well. And the main reason I wanted this game is because this is one of the very few titles that supports the Dreamcast Neo Geo Pocket Color link cable. And so you can actually transfer currency and things like that from the Pocket game into the Dreamcast game and use it in there. And it worked very similar with some of the SNK versus Capcom titles as well. Probably going to try to complete the set of those. I think there's only maybe only one more I need, or one or two. But I do think it was really cool technology that had the Dreamcast and the Neo Geo Pocket actually had a good fortune in the marketplace. Probably would have been used a lot more. But this one's kind of interesting. I think this one was new old stock. This is one that the prices are kind of all over the place, like on eBay. And that's one of the reasons I never pulled the trigger. But then I got thinking, like, there used to be wholesalers that had, like, tons of copies of these new back in, like, not that distant time. And ended up poking around on Amazon and found a seller that actually had this one. They didn't advertise it as new, but I really think it was. And a lot of these later Neo Geo Pocket Color games never came in any kind of shrink wrap or anything. So, pretty sure this was an unused copy of the game. The other thing I'll say that's interesting about this one is that because you play instruments in this game, which is a little bit different than the Dreamcast game, it has some really neat technology with how you hold the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and depending on what you're playing, whether it's a horn or a guitar or drums, you actually might hold the Neo Geo Pocket upside down as far as how it displays on the screen, or you even hold it on its side as if you're playing like a stringed instrument. So definitely some weird stuff going on there. The screen obviously rotates to those orientations whenever it's time. I played around with this. It has some practice modes where you can do some of that and just mess around with the instruments, which is nice. But I tried to get through like some of the game, and wow, it is really text heavy and a lot of conversations to move the story along. So it'd be kind of neat if somebody actually did a translation of this, but I won't hold my breath because it's a pretty niche title. And unfortunately, this one, I guess, had no intention of coming to the US, so they didn't put like an English version on the cart like they did with some of the other games. But very happy to have this in the Neo Geo Pocket Color library, and definitely want to mess around with the Dreamcast transfer thing once I get some credits built up in this. Another game I got at the Game Force store in Boulder was this one, which, like, on the surface looks like it would just be some shovelware trash, but it actually has some interest to me. So this is Crash City Mayhem for the 3DS. A game I very rarely ever see, and why I thought I wanted this in my library is because this is actually part of the Runabout series, which had several different titles over the years. We got Felony 1179 and Runabout 2 on the PS1 in the US, so they didn't even keep consistent naming. And then you have things like this, and then I think there was a PS2 Runabout that was Japan only, and we also had Super Runabout on the Dreamcast, which did keep the series name. So very interesting, like, early vehicular combat type games. They had unlicensed cars in them, but they were like semblances of the real thing for many like sports cars and trucks and stuff like that. And this one looks to be no different. I haven't had a chance to pop this one in yet, but I definitely want to check it out. Runabout games are just big, dumb fun. Like, there's not a whole lot of thinking going on with them. You crash into a bunch of stuff in cities and towns and stuff like that, and try to collect money or whatever the goal of the game is. So definitely want to check this one out. And again, like, I think this one flew under the radar because it had just such a stupid branding for the US market. So looking forward to checking that out more. So another thing I got at the Game Force in Boulder was it's original in the package, but the package is like disintegrated over time. It's like all yellowed and gross. But the inside item is actually in perfect shape, and that is the neck strap for the Neo Geo Pocket. They had a whole bunch of these. I don't really know why, but I figured, you know what, I don't actually have one of these in the collection. And this is not to be confused with the wrist strap, which also exists for the Neo Geo Pocket Color, and I don't have one of those yet. I'd like to get one of those. I think the neck strap only came in this like gray and black motif as far as color, but the wrist straps, I've seen those in like a few different colors. And then this is kind of neat because it has the Neo Geo Pocket logo on the edge of the strap. So I don't know, I guess if you want to like walk around like Flava Flav and have a Neo Geo Pocket Color dangling around your neck, this is the way to do it. I probably won't ever use it, but nice to have the option if it presents itself, I guess. Something else I got at the store in the Game Force was, it's missing the actual system card, but it is the TurboGrafx 16 slash Super System Card 3.0. And this is basically what you would use if you had a original TurboGrafx and Turbo CD, but wanted to play the later games that came out for the Turbo Duo that require the System 3.0 card. So this is the case and everything like that went with that. Kind of interesting, this has actually the same artwork as the PC Engine version, with the exception that they just slapped a TurboGrafx logo on the front and back. And it just has this weird, like, I don't know what it is, just generic looking logos and stuff like that on it. This is actually a pretty expensive item, like especially if it had the card. Maybe I'll find a loose card down the road. I'm just going to keep the case for now, just because I thought, like, when else would you find this? And they gave me a good deal on it. So, very happy to have this. I don't really need it because I have a Duo, which has the 3.0 software built into it. But if I ever got a original TurboGrafx and CD combo unit and wanted to mess around with that, and I got the card, I would be all set. So, I don't think they sold a whole lot of these in the US, but it was neat that they did, just to support the older hardware, so not everybody that had that stuff didn't have to go ahead and buy a Duo to play the later releases. So neat that TurboGrafx did all that stuff the way they did. All right, well, we're going to get to my final item of the month. This was the big thing I bought from Gameforce. This is one thing that I had to, like, struggle to get home because I was flying there, and this is kind of big and bulky. So the store was really nice. They helped me out. They even gave me a bag because it was very dusty from just being in the store probably for about the last 30 years. And it was a piece of PS1 promotional memorabilia for, like, displaying, games that were popular on the PS1 at one point. So I would carbon date this to about 1997 as far as the games that are featured on it. They had two of these in the store. One of them had gotten some water damage on it, unfortunately, so I passed on that one. I grabbed the nicer one, but I thought they gave me a really good price on this. And it's something that I'd never seen before, even working in game retail in the late 90s and getting free Sony stuff. So this, with no further ado, is a really cool cube display that hangs on the ceiling. It has like a little tag here. You can hang it up. And that was how it was in the store. Like, they had this thing probably hanging in their ceiling the last 27, 28 years. And so it features several of the games that were popular during, like, say, around 1997. And it has this insert that goes inside of the cube that has interchangeable panels that I'm assuming, like, they intended to update this over time. So obviously the big one is Crash Bandicoot 1. I think that's really cool that that's on there. You have NCAA Game Breaker Football, the original one. Don't really think many people are nostalgic for that, but it's on here as well. You have another side with Crash. Again, I think they knew that was going to be the big money title, so why not have that displaying as this thing spinning around in a store? And then it also has Tekken 2 on this side, which I think is pretty cool. So I thought that was really it as far as, like, the titles that are featured, but then I opened it up, and it actually has a reversible side that has two of the same titles repeated, but then it also has a Twisted Metal 2 panel and a 2 Extreme panel. So it was set up for, however they wanted to display certain titles during the special amount of time that it was featured. The other one they had in the store had some other different titles, and they were actually even older. So I think that one was, the insert from that was even more aged than this one was. And it had Beyond the Beyond, a panel for that, which I thought was cool. And then, I'm trying to remember what the other title was that was unique to that. I think it was a sports game as well. But you can tell this was, like, early PlayStation because it has their early slogan, which is "You are not ready," which was, like, really tough for people to figure out, but the E is red. And then you have just a PlayStation logo there. It has a little faded on the top. It's got the PlayStation logo there. And then even on the bottom you have the controller buttons kind of laid out in there. So I'm super excited about this. I mean, I'd been admiring this every time I went out to that store over the last few years. I was like, oh, it's so cool to see something like that that's still intact. So I'm going to proudly put this up in my game room. I just haven't figured out where I'm going to hang it just yet. But very happy to have this. I just think this is super cool and a nice way to remember a store that I thought was really great, and it's sad that it's closing. So happy I was able to grab this early in the closeout sale. I hope somebody else gets the other one that's local because I think it's pretty cool. They had some other stuff like this. There was like a giant cardboard N64 logo that was equally old. Somebody had already bought that up, and I think he told me they sold that for like $1,000. And then they had a Star Fox 64 plane that's still hanging in the store that I know a lot of people would like to have as well. That was like $900. So I didn't pay nearly that for this, and honestly, this was the one I was more excited about, but very happy to get this in the collection. Something I had never seen before, and even back in the day, I don't remember seeing these dangling in stores. So if you've ever seen this display piece before, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, if you remember it from being on display anywhere, because I'm curious like what retailers actually got this. But very happy to have this, and somehow it made it home on the plane. I had to do some creative folding on it just to make sure that it would fit in my suitcase, but it did make it home, and I'm very happy to have this in the collection. So that about does it for the month. Again, shout out to Gameforce, and sad that you guys are going to be going away, but the legend will live on with some of the stuff that you're getting into collector hands, so it's very cool to see that. Thank you very much for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.